Hey founders, welcome to the GAB Lab. This is a show designed to provide you with financial intelligence that will blow your mind, but more importantly, it's going to build your bottom line. So my name's Taunya Richardson. I am the show host. Actually, today I'm the guest. I'm the Nail the Numbers Pro because we're doing things a little differently today. Our episode champion, Community Futures Parkland, wanted me to weigh in on pricing that packs a punch. So I turned to my partner in crime, none other than Andrea Lutz, to help me today with the interview process. Good morning, Andrea.
Good morning, Taunya, and I'm so honored that you asked me to do this. I'm also an entrepreneur from rural Saskatchewan. I'm the founder of my company, and it's been a road. I've been in business for over 6 years now. And actually a couple of years ago is when we met because I attended your Nail the Numbers boot camp. And that's when I was introduced to your magnificence with money. I was so blown away and just impressed by what an expert that you are on nailing the numbers and planning for profit. And that's something that everybody needs to get to sooner rather than later. I was so happy that you came into my life at the time that you did. Help me to remain in business still today. So I'm excited and happy to be interviewing you as the expert today.
Well, I love it. Fast friends we became, and here we are. Today is all about pricing, and I love that you talked about the profit piece, because every single episode that we do here in Nail the Numbers, it is always about the impact on bottom line profit. Because really at the end of the day, if we're not making profit, we're not going to be staying in business. To be in business, we need to be making money. And there's such a stigma attached to making money and profit. And I'm hoping that through COVID now, people are recognizing, right? Oh, it really is about bottom line. We need to make sure.
It's so important. It's funny that it's the most important thing, but it seems to be something that gets put on the back burner when you have all the other things to think about when it comes to bringing a business to life.
Oh, those little distractions, hey? Butterfly chasers that we all are as entrepreneurs.
It's easy to find distractions. Yeah.
Love it.
So today you're going to show us how to focus on actually creating a pricing strategy.
Exactly. So pricing strategy, let's get right into that. So I have to, if we're going to talk about the relevance of pricing on bottom line, because typically people will think about that as top line, revenue driving, which it is, but where most business owners are losing their net profit, where they're hemorrhaging their profit, is in their pricing strategy. And it's in their cost of goods. And I'm going to speak to cost of goods a little later on. I think it's in our third episode. But this is why our pricing strategy is so important. And I don't know about you, Andrea, but I know the vast majority of business owners that I have worked with have picked their price based on what their competition is doing.
It's so funny that you say that, because I was making a few notes before this and I was thinking back to when I was writing my business plan. And I run a coffee shop and I live in a very small town. Talk about rural Saskatchewan. And I had absolutely no pricing strategy. My pricing strategy was to go into Tim Hortons and take a picture of their menu board and then think, now, what would I pay? What would I pay for this? And that's what I made my price, if you can believe it or not, way back when, because I had absolutely no experience. But I didn't take into account that my business and Tim Hortons are completely different animals. We have completely different quality of product, completely different wage and product costs, completely different business model even. But because our product was similar, I thought that was the best way to go. I didn't know better. You're here to tell us how to do better.
I'm here to tell you differently. Absolutely. Absolutely. So a little caveat before I begin in pricing, though, is that I do want to say for all the restaurant owners out there and the coffee shop owners, when you're looking to price your food, we actually, in our first episode of the GAB Lab with Ron Robichaux, he actually gave us all of the templates where we put in all of our food costs and our packaging costs. And then we take all of those costs and we multiply it by 33.3%, which is what is going to give us our price. So it's not to say what I'm, go ahead, sorry.
Yes, it's an amazing, super simple, when it comes down to simplifying how you strategize your price, you can't get easier and better than that.
Yeah.
I
So
wish
that's
I
layer
had
one.
that.
Well,
Yes.
and now you do. Now you do.
Yes.
And it doesn't hurt to check in again, right? Because
Yeah.
especially in the food business, we see rising increase in costs all the time with cheese and with
Yes.
meat and with shipping. And so it's important to go back and look at that every quarter or, you know, every half, and not leave it for 3 years down the road. So everything I'm about to share with you, especially in this first segment, still applies to restaurants. I just wanted to throw that out there, that, you know, when it comes to your costs, that's a great episode to actually check out, because all the tools and templates are there. So now let's step back a little bit, and I want to just talk about streamlining the offering, because in my experience in working with entrepreneurs, we've got two buckets of entrepreneurs. We've got the entrepreneur that really just they think they've got one product. I see this oftentimes with service-based entrepreneurs. They're like, oh, I just charge an hourly rate, right? That's all I do. So I'm going to encourage those business owners to flesh that out a little bit more, to think about, is it really hourly, or what are you selling? Are you actually selling family mitigation services? Are you helping families to actually go through a divorce or a separation through that process, right? So what does that entire project actually look like, instead of just hourly? The other bucket, and unfortunately this is more often the case, is that entrepreneurs have a running list of anywhere from 5 to 250 products that they want to sell. And the problem with that is that it becomes overwhelming to actually monitor, it becomes overwhelming to price, and quite honestly, it becomes overwhelming to the consumer, the client. Because when you give us too many options, we actually just walk away. It boggles our mind, especially through. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to streamline your offering. So when somebody comes in, whether it's an investor or a customer, and they say, what are you selling? When I'm working with a client, I always want them to be able to list off their top 3. What we sell is this. So maybe in a coffee shop, for example, you're saying we sell hot beverages, baked goods, and meals, right? Maybe in a retail example, we're selling women's formal, women's casual, and women's accessories, right? Instead of, well, we've got shirts and pants and belts and boots and t-shirts and shorts, and, you know, it becomes too much. So really being able to streamline that and being able to articulate exactly what you sell in a concise way is extremely powerful.
And compartmentalizing in that way gets rid of that overwhelm. And that's a huge mental barrier when it comes to just becoming paralyzed and not being able to move forward.
Absolutely. And it certainly doesn't help with your pricing strategy, because this is oftentimes where you're going to bleed pennies, right? Because there's just too much overwhelm and you can't get in and get really focused on that one specific price. So, you know, and even in services, those were examples of products, but services, for example, construction, right? You could potentially lump it into 3 buckets: small projects, medium projects, and large projects, right? Small might be tiny repairs, medium might be a kitchen reno, and large could be a total addition to a house. So really important to think along those lines. Now, what I do want to share is I've got a worksheet for everybody that is listening, and the worksheet is really about selecting your product mix. And so it's going to ask you to list down all of the different things that you sell. And then it's going to, right beside, you're going to actually identify who your audience is. Is it business to business? Is it business to consumer? Or is it business to entrepreneur? And then it's going to ask you to identify the seasonality of that product or service, right? Is this something that sells in the summer, in the winter, in the fall, in the spring? Is there a small window? Like we think about house sales, right? All the house sales typically happen in the spring, although through COVID, that just became a free-for-all, and it's still happening. But typically there's seasonality that's attached. And then I also want you to look at year to date, and this is very specific. For 2020, year to date, what have your sales been in these product categories, right? Because consumer behavior has definitely changed through COVID. which now leads us to the last column, which is relevance. So you're going to go through all of these products and you're going to be assigning, and assessing each one of these categories. And then relevance is super key, because right now through COVID, this is when we have an opportunity to show up powerfully for our community based on what their needs are. So the gift in COVID is that it's actually showing us that we really do need to provide solutions. We should have been providing solutions all along, but our society was such that we were looking for quick fixes, and there was just so much noise and distraction, and we were just buying anything that came along, and now people are getting very selective with what they buy. So this is a great time for commodities, right? It's a great time for candles and soap and things that people use. It's a great time for anything to do with home repairs. It's a great time for anything to do with mental health and taking care of yourself. So actually just weigh in on the relevance of each one of these products or services right now. And again, we should be doing this every quarter, every half, so that we can.
And what all those changes mean is that it's also a great time to pivot in your business, which is something that you and I actually talked about at the beginning of COVID. It was like triage. It was like, okay, what needs to be done here? And it was apparent that because the economic climate is changing, business needs to change too. And that's where re-examining your pricing strategy comes into play.
Yeah, the pricing strategy and your product suite. Right? So the product suite, AKA product mix, it's just what are these top revenue generators for you, right? It doesn't matter if you're a small business or a big business. You're going to have what's called profit centers, where you're going to make the most amount of money. And all I'm asking you and the audience to do is to figure out what's most relevant right now based on what people are needing. And this is why Blockbuster went out of business. Right? They didn't check in. They didn't do the weighted pricing model. Is this still relevant? Are movies still relevant? Right? No. So regardless of the pandemic, you should be doing this every year to make sure you're still hitting the mark. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Do you think, are we good then with kind of streamlining the product offering? Clear on that? How to pull that together, that product mix?
Is there anything more you wanted to go into?
No, sorry. Okay, we'll edit that out.
Okay. I wasn't sure if we were if that was part of our.
Sorry, I threw that out. Yeah. Okay. All right. So.
Maybe we should find a way to segue that into stretching the revenue model. That's what you want to go over next?
That's okay. I'll bring it up.
Okay.
I'll bring it up. Okay. So we'll just do this. There we go. Okay. So once we've got the product mixed down, right, now we're actually going to look at revenue models. And I think a lot of people get confused with what is a revenue model. Can I put you on the spot for a minute?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So if someone were to ask you, what is your revenue model? What would you assume that question would mean?
I would assume it would ask me to list my different income streams, my revenue streams.
Yeah, okay, we're close. I remember getting asked this question. It was probably about 20 years ago. No, yes, oh my God, it's about 20 years ago. I know, really, it must be less than that. And it was a potential investor, and we were actually out for dinner, and he asked me this, and I thought the same thing. I'm like, well, we sell this and this and this. He's like, that's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you what your revenue model is. This is why it always sticks with me. So your business model is, what type of business are you? Sole proprietorship and corporation. What do you sell, right? Here's the products that we offer. The revenue model is how you earn the money. How do you make money selling that product or service? So when people are asking you that, they're asking you to articulate, are you, so with product lines, it could be retail, could be e-commerce, right? It's transactional. With services, it could be fee for service, right? It could be, well, fee for service, and then you can start to bundle under that. It could just be hourly, or it could be project-based. But they're asking you to identify how that product or service actually gets out there in the market and how you capture that revenue in. So in this exercise, this is what I look for clients to be able to articulate. How are you making money from that product or service?
So for example, just to clarify, for me as a coffee shop owner, what would my revenue model be then?
What would you guess it would be?
I would guess it would be in person, people coming in, paying cash and carry kind of a thing.
Yeah, cash and carry, retail transactional, right? Absolutely. Yeah. That's it. Bang on. So what is really, again, advantageous to COVID is that it's forcing entrepreneurs to think outside of the box and look for ways that they can leverage their revenue model. So same product, same service, just applying different revenue models to it. So what's become really popular? Subscription models, right? Where instead of transactional, how can you get that transaction to kind of skew over multiple months so that you're getting consistent revenue and you're building that loyalty and front of mind service? So it might be, what could be some examples here. When it comes to products, what comes to mind right away are some of the beauty companies that they just send you a monthly bucket now, right? A monthly basket of here's all your beauty products for the month. You could potentially do this in coffee, right? Where you're doing a monthly subscription to have their beans refilled. Right? Like
actually, yes, during COVID, you helped me out with this. We worked on this doing a bakery box type thing where we put together the coffee or muffins, everything, and then that would go out every Sunday or once a week.
There you go. So that's it. So we just need to find ways to create consistency with the income. And instead of waiting for the customer to come to us for that transaction, we find a way to go to them and we secure the income month over month over month.
Perpetuate.
Right? Absolutely.
Sale. Yeah.
So we could do like a 3-month subscription, a 6-month, whatever you feel. Even as piloting, you can do a smaller amount of time, right? Lower barrier of commitment. So that's a subscription-based model. We see it oftentimes with services, for sure. Advertising is another very popular revenue model, but I will say that most of the time it's left for big business because you need to have thousands of people visiting your site to be able to warrant any sort of revenue generation option there. Here's another one for people to think about: an affiliate-based revenue model. We hear a lot about affiliate marketing and partnership marketing, right? All of those sorts of things, but it applies to small business as well. And so one of the examples I can think of off the top of my head is a photography business. So when you think about who it makes sense to actually build a strategic alliance with in photography, it might be a makeup artist. It might be a framing company. And so now instead of just sending your clients off to say, go find a makeup company and then come back to me with your face ready, right? You actually partner up with these individuals and then they give you a percentage of the revenue that's generated through that client.
Right.
With just strategic thinking that way. So that's called an affiliate revenue model. There's a freemium revenue model, which is usually for tech-based businesses where you've got software as a service. And it's a low barrier to entry because you offer a free app, right? But then once somebody gets in, then it's an in-app purchase model, right? That's an example there. And then here's a really cool one. Have you ever heard of the razor and blade revenue model?
No, I haven't.
So this is where you sell a low-price tool but a high-priced commodity that people need to keep coming back for.
This is what the people making printers are doing.
This is it. It started with, I won't name the brand of the company, but it started with the razor and blade model where you get the razor for 99 cents and now blades are, it's ridiculous, right? $75?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. The printer business, brilliant example.
Yes.
Printer and then $75 for cartridge. So that's called the razor and blade revenue model. And if you can think of something where you've got a really low barrier to entry, so they buy the tool and then you can keep them coming back with that high ticket commodity.
Mm-hmm.
So
Brilliant.
those are revenue models. So now at this point, we're able to address what it is that we're selling and how we're making money with it. And so the last piece that I want everyone to think about, and I know we've spent time talking about it, but hopefully really this doesn't take more than an hour to go through this whole process, right? I'm just kind of giving you the granular idea of how this works. So now the last thing I want you to consider is how can you optimize, how can you bundle, or how can you streamline the product or service? So you're going to want to do this for each product or service now. So optimization, really the objective is just securing that top line revenue. So one of the things I do want to point out, especially for those businesses that offer a service, but that can oftentimes come with a product. So for example, construction, where you're doing construction, but now you have to buy all of the material. I want you to think about either charging a deposit up front so that all your material costs are covered and that you won't be out of pocket. I can't tell you how many people I worked with at the beginning of COVID that had all of these receivables outstanding and they were out of pocket all the material. So not only did they not make money, they lost the money because they had bought these things. So charge a deposit. The other thing that you can do for service-based businesses is what's called progress-based billing. So for each milestone that you accomplish in that service, you charge them an incremental rate. So rather than just a deposit and then the end balance, deposit, payment 2, payment 3, final payment, right? So that
it's almost like insurance when it comes to.
Exactly. And then, I'm trying to think of, can you think of any other ways to optimize your revenue streams? I think those are really the big ones that I can think of right now, outside of bundling and splintering. Actually, I do have one more example, but I'm gonna bundle that into bundling. So, because it layers on both. So, in bundling, I think everyone's probably pretty familiar with bundling, right? This is where we're used to it with products, right? Instead of selling one, you now sell a pack of 6, or you go to Costco and they're selling 58 rolls of toilet paper, right? Instead of the 4. So that's a good way to bundle product. We also see product being bundled with service, right? Where perhaps if you're doing facials, you're offering the facial and then you're bundling that with a moisturizer. So you want to package the two of them. You don't just want to leave it to chance, and you don't want to feel like you're trying to sell something at the end. Just offer the bundle up front. You come in for your facial, we're selling the moisturizer at the same time, but the whole package is X. We see this oftentimes at Christmas, right around the holidays, where everything gets bundled. But here's a really cool idea of optimization, and this again kind of ties into your revenue streams. I have a client who does hair consultations for hair loss. So what she will do is, formally, before we went through this process, she said, well, my profit centers, I sell consultations and then I sell product. And so we said, well, why don't you bundle the consultation with the product? And then she went, okay, perfect. And then we said, why don't you actually offer I don't want to say a subscription, but turn it into a package. So if you know that your customer, if there's a specific outcome that they need to achieve, so coffee shop isn't the greatest example in this, but specifically with services, if we talk about a facial and they are looking for skin resurfacing, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something, and you know that on average it is going to take 6 sessions for that to happen, sell them 6 sessions. Sell them the product and the service, but then bundled into 6 sessions, or a subscription model for maintenance after, right? So it completely changes the dynamic, again, of waiting for someone to come and do business with you to saying, here's what we're going to sell. You don't need to pay for it until you come in, but what we are going to do today is we're going to book every single one of your sessions.
Right.
So it's locked in. So that's an example of bundling there. And then the last thing that I do want to share is splintering. Has splintering come up in any of your conversations yet, Andrea?
No, I was going to ask you about this, because I understand optimize, I understand bundle, but Splinter seems like you're breaking it down, separating it, which seems counterintuitive. So explain that to me.
There you go. Well, you nailed it. And why we're doing that is it's come up a lot through COVID, and it's a low barrier to entry. So what I'm seeing a lot of entrepreneurs do right now is discounting. They're like, well, you know, people's financial situations, that some people are struggling, right? And so let's just discount, discount, discount. What I'm going to urge you to think about instead is to splinter. So how it's true is taking one product or service and trying to break that down. So it's the reverse of bundling. And the idea then is to offer a low barrier to entry to get people to buy in to you and your business for the first time, so you can establish a relationship, and then you exceed their expectations so that they continue to buy from you. So the value of that customer is still going to be the same at the end, but because you've broken apart a product or service and been able to give them a small little nugget at the beginning, now you can build loyalty with that person. They come in because it's like, okay, there's not much risk here. I can afford this. And then you over exceed on the delivery side of things. So
when you're considering that, then do you have to consider a certain customer base that you're targeting for that, or
always
is that just a broad base?
No, always know your target audience. Always know who you're selling to, what their key frustrations are, what their problem is, and how you're solving that problem. Because you're actually not selling the thing, you're actually selling a solution. And to sell a solution,
so when you're considering doing a splinter, that is going to be for a certain customer base that you maybe hadn't been able to bring in before. So you're doing this specific offering.
Yes.
For certain customers.
Ideal. I mean, if you need to go broad with it, you can, right? But just think it through, and then whatever makes sense financially based on where you're at and where that customer base is at. So for example, if you're a bookkeeping business and you offer monthly bookkeeping services, right? Very broad, very generic. Ideally, you start to segment who your ideal audience is. You know, I've got one client that works with only nonprofits. I've got another client that works with women's spa services. But let's say that you want to segment that, you want to splinter that out. One option could be that you offer a specific package that is, we organize your receipts. Bring us your 2020 receipts. We're going to organize it in the fine print. It's like maximum of 4 hours, right? But we're going to do all of that, and the rate is $250. Or maybe it's a lower barrier to entry where you can do something for 2 hours or an hour, and you're only charging $75, right? So you make it task specific with a price point, and that would obviously have a very specific audience, someone whose receipts are not organized, right? Yeah. Almost every entrepreneur, but not really. Right?
And then that's when you get them on the splinter, then you can introduce the bundle.
Exactly. And again, just knowing your audience and where they're at, because not everybody's in a tight financial situation right now, right? Yeah. Home builds are up, home acquisitions are up. People are investing more now than they ever have. We're very fragmented as a country right now. There's people in economic turmoil, and there's people, reaping benefits right now off the market. So just know where your audience is sitting, go in and solve their pain point. That's it. So that really is, it kind of brings us as a wrap to that first segment of know what you're selling, know, how you're making money off of that. And before we move into pricing, find a way to either optimize it, to bundle it, or to splinter it out. And then we move over to the weighted pricing process.
Exactly.
All right, so let's leave this one here. I'm going to ask everyone who's watching this now, if you want to figure out how to price, now that you've done your first step, join us in the next episode, episode 2, where we actually go through the 4-step process of weighing your price, and then weighing your product, and then setting your price. So thanks again to our friends over at Community Futures Parkland for investing in all of you and allowing us to be with you today and sharing this expertise. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next episode.